He thought the silent guard was an easy target for his viral stunt. But when he slammed the soldier to the ground, he didn't just break a man's body, he broke a sacred national vow. The air at Arlington National Cemetery carried a weight that hushed whispers and slowed footsteps. Under a vast, clear Virginia sky, rose a pristine white marble headstone stretched across rolling green hills, a silent, ordered testament to sacrifice. Here, the noise of the world seemed to fade, replaced by a profound, almost sacred, quiet. The focal point of this reverence was the tomb of the unknown soldier, a gleaming sarcophagus of white marble overlooking the Potomac River. On the plaza before it, a crowd gathered, their faces a mixture of solemnity and awe. They watched the lone figure who walked upon the black mat. That figure was Sergeant Caleb Reed, a 30-year-old soldier chosen for one of the U.S. Army's most honored duties. He was a sentinel at the Tomb of the Unknowns, a member of the elite 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard. Tall and lean, with a jawline that seemed carved from granite, his every movement was a study in perfection. His Army service uniform was flawless, the creases sharp, the brass gleaming. Beneath the brim of his perfectly positioned service cap, his eyes, a startlingly clear blue, were fixed forward, seeing nothing and everything at once. He took exactly 21 steps. Click. His heels met. He turned, facing the tomb for 21 seconds. Click. He turned again, shifted his M14 rifle to his other shoulder, and stood for another 21 seconds before beginning his solitary march again. Each step, each second, was a tribute to the unknown soldiers buried before him, a living promise from a grateful nation. Into this sanctuary of discipline and respect strode a discordant note. Jagger Weston, a professional wrestler whose fame was built more on social media stunts than championship belts, swaggered toward the viewing area. He was a mountain of muscle packed into a tight, neon green tank top that screamed savage strength in aggressive block letters. A thick gold chain rested on his bulging traps, and his limited edition sneakers seemed to glow against the hallowed ground. He moved with a restless energy, his head swiveling, his eyes scanning not for a moment of reflection, but for an audience. His friends, a nervous-looking group clutching phones, trailed in his wake. Seriously? This is it? Jagger's voice, a gravelly boom, shattered the quiet. Several onlookers flinched, turning to glare at him. He just walks back and forth. I've seen more action in a library. Jagger, man, keep it down, one of his friends hissed, tugging at his arm. Jagger shrugged him off with a laugh. What for? He's a performer, right? Paid to be a statue. True warriors are on the battlefield, not parading around for tourists. His words, sharp and dismissive, cut through the air. A few feet away, an elderly man in a Vietnam veteran cap slowly rose to his feet. He didn't shout. His voice was low, but it carried the cold authority of a command. Son, the veteran said, his eyes locking onto Jagger's. You have no idea where you are standing. Show some damn respect. For a moment, Jagger looked taken aback, but the shame was quickly replaced by a smirk. He saw the phones of his friends, already recording. He saw the wider crowd now watching him, their disapproval a spotlight he craved. The stage was set. And Caleb Reed, oblivious and silent, continued his perfect, lonely walk. The tension on the plaza thickened, becoming a palpable force. Jagger Weston fed on it, his chest puffing out as he became the undeniable center of attention. He saw the disapproving glares, the mothers pulling their children closer, and interpreted it all as engagement. This was his arena now. I bet you $100 he's not even allowed to talk, Jagger announced to his friends, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. They probably wire their jaws shut. What's he gonna do if I get a little closer? Don't, Jagger. Seriously, this isn't the place, another friend pleaded, his face pale. But his words were a flimsy dam against the tide of Jagger's ego. Ignoring him, Jagger took a deliberate step toward the low, velvet rope that separated the crowd from the guard's patrol mat. That simple rope was more than a physical barrier, it was a line of sanctity, a silent request for reverence that every other soldier understood. Jagger placed a garish, oversized sneaker over it. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The veteran who had spoken earlier took a half-step forward, his hands clenched into fists, before his wife placed a restraining hand on his arm. "He's not worth it, Frank," she murmured. Now on the guard side of the rope, Jagger was in Caleb's world. The air here felt different, charged with decades of unwavering duty. Caleb, on his 21-second pause facing the tomb, remained motionless, a pillar of self-control. But inside, his senses were on high alert. He could smell the cloying mix of cheap energy drink and cologne wafting off Jagger. He could hear the man's heavy, arrogant breathing. His training was absolute: do not break your bearing. Acknowledge nothing unless a direct threat is perceived. The procedure was clear, but every instinct screamed at the violation. Jagger began to circle him like a shark, staying just out of arm's reach. He started to mimic Caleb's movements in a grotesque parody, taking clumsy, exaggerated steps and swinging his arms wildly. "Look at me. I'm a real soldier," he mocked, letting out a high-pitched, derisive laugh. "Step 2, 3, so serious." The crowd's murmurs grew into audible protests. "Get him out of there," someone shouted. "Security," another yelled toward the distant memorial amphitheater. Caleb's internal monologue was a torrent of discipline warring with primal anger. "Hold your post. He is a test. The tomb is all that matters. You are a guardian, not a brawler. Do not let him desecrate this ground with a reaction." But Jagger was escalating. He closed the distance until he was standing directly in Caleb's path, forcing the sentinel to halt his march mid-step. They were inches apart. Jagger loomed over the soldier, a sneering giant casting a shadow over the immaculate uniform. "What's the matter, tin soldier?" Jagger goaded, waving a hand in front of Caleb's unblinking eyes. "Cat got your tongue? Or is there nothing in there at all?" He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that was still loud enough for the front rows to hear. "I'm gonna make you famous." Time seemed to warp, slowing to a crawl as every eye on the plaza locked onto the two figures. The world shrank to the space between the arrogant wrestler and the unmoving soldier. Jagger's smirk widened into a predatory grin. This was his moment, the climax of his performance, the clip that would get millions of views. "You brought this on yourself, pal," Jagger snarled, his voice a low growl of feigned justification. He crouched slightly, bending his knees, shifting his weight like he was in the wrestling ring. The motion was fluid, practiced, and utterly horrifying in this sacred space. A woman screamed, a sharp, piercing sound of pure disbelief. "Stop him! Oh my God, somebody stop him!" But it was too late. Before anyone could react, before the distant MPs could possibly arrive, Jagger lunged. His massive arms, corded with muscle, wrapped around Caleb Reed's torso in an iron grip. For a split second, Caleb's body tensed, a flicker of resistance against the overwhelming force, but the attack was too sudden, too brutally efficient. With a guttural roar of exertion that echoed across the silent cemetery, Jagger flexed his entire body. He lifted the sentinel clean off his feet. Caleb, a trained soldier weighing nearly 200 pounds, was treated like a ragdoll. The crowd let out a collective, strangled cry as they saw the soldier's polished black shoes leave the ground. Jagger pivoted, a textbook move from his wrestling repertoire, a body slam. He turned his power into a devastating arc, swinging the helpless soldier through the air. And then came the impact. It wasn't a loud crack, but a sickening, dull thud that seemed to vibrate through the marble itself. Caleb's body hit the stone plaza with a force that knocked the air from his lungs. The sound was obscene, a desecration of the profound quiet. His service cap flew from his head, tumbling across the ground like a fallen bird. His M14 rifle, released from his grip, clattered onto the stone with a sharp, metallic ring that cut through the horrified silence. Caleb landed hard on his back and shoulder. His pristine uniform was instantly scuffed and dirted. A wave of agony contorted his features, shattering the stoic mask he had worn for so long. He tried to push himself up with his right arm, his training demanding he rise, but a bolt of white-hot pain shot through his left shoulder, and he collapsed back with a choked gasp. His left arm lay at an unnatural angle, clearly broken. For a heartbeat, absolute silence reigned. Then, chaos erupted. Jagger Weston stepped back, his chest heaving. He wasn't horrified. He wasn't remorseful. He was triumphant. He threw his arms into the air in a classic victory pose, a grotesque grin splitting his face as he roared at his friend's phone camera. That's savage strength. That's how you wake up a toy soldier. His victory cry was drowned out by a wave of pure, unadulterated fury from the crowd. Jagger's moment of grotesque triumph was brutally short-lived. From the direction of the amphitheater, 3 figures appeared, moving with a speed and purpose that was terrifying in its efficiency. It was the relief commander, flanked by 2 armed military police officers. Their faces were grim masks of cold fury. The crowd parted for them as if by an invisible force. The relief commander, a master sergeant with eyes like chips of ice, didn't slow his stride until he was standing over the still grinning wrestler. His voice wasn't a shout, it was a low, controlled command that cut through the noise like a razor. On the ground. Now. Jagger's victory pose faltered. The reality of his situation began to dawn on him, the triumphant grin melting into a confused scowl. Hey, chill out, man. It was a prank, bro. For my channel. The MPs didn't respond. They moved in perfect, synchronized motion. One grabbed Jagger's arms, wrenching them behind his back with practiced force. The sharp, metallic click of handcuffs snapping shut echoed across the plaza. The sound was met with a roar of approval from the onlookers. Get down, the other MP barked, forcing the hulking wrestler to his knees, then flat onto the cobblestones. Jagger's face, now pressed against the same stone where he had slammed the sentinel, was a mask of disbelief and dawning panic. Meanwhile, the relief commander was already kneeling beside Caleb. Medics were rushing to the scene, but the commander's first concern was for his soldier. Caleb was pushing himself up again, his face pale and beaded with sweat, his teeth gritted against the agony in his shoulder. His eyes, however, were not on his injury. They were fixed on his fallen rifle, lying a few feet away. Sir. Caleb gasped, his voice strained. My rifle. I have to. Easy, Sergeant, the commander said, his voice softening for the first time. The medics are here. As the medics began to gently assess his injuries, confirming a severe fracture to the collarbone, Caleb's gaze remained locked on his duty. With his good arm, he struggled, trying to get to his feet. My tour is not over, he said, the words a testament to an unbreakable will. I have to complete my watch. The medics and his commander had to gently but firmly hold him down, assuring him his duty was done, that he had upheld his honor beyond measure. The crowd, witnessing this incredible display of fortitude, fell silent. The anger they felt toward Jagger was replaced by a wave of profound respect for the injured soldier. As the medics carefully loaded Caleb onto a stretcher, a spontaneous applause broke out, not for the capture of a fool, but in tribute to a hero. It started with a few people, then grew into a thunderous ovation that rolled across the hills of Arlington, a salute to the living embodiment of the spirit they had all come to honor. Before the ambulance carrying Caleb Reed had even reached Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, the digital storm had broken. Dozens of videos, filmed from every conceivable angle, hit the internet like a tidal wave. Jagger's friend, who had filmed the entire thing for the viral stunt, uploaded his clip first, complete with Jagger's triumphant roar. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. Within an hour, the incident was the #1 trending topic worldwide. The hashtags #ArlingtonDisgrace and #HonorTheSentinel burned across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The footage was brutal and undeniable. News outlets ripped the videos, plastering them across their websites with explosive headlines: "National Disgrace, Influencer Desecrates Tomb of the Unknown Soldier." "Hero in Uniform, Tomb Guards Unbreakable Honor After Shocking Attack." The public reaction was not just angry, it was deeply personal and visceral. On TikTok, a user overlaid the video of the slam with a slow, mournful piano track, ending on a close-up of Caleb trying to get up. It garnered millions of views in hours. A popular YouTube commentator, a retired Marine, posted a 10-minute, expletive-laden reaction video titled simply "Disgusting," where he emotionally explained the sacred significance of the tomb. The comment sections became a space for collective grief and rage. "My great-grandfather fought in World War II. That tomb represents him. This man spit on his grave," one top comment read. Another, from a Gold Star wife, said, "I visit Arlington to feel close to my husband. To see someone treat it like a playground, it breaks my heart all over again." Jagger Weston's social media was annihilated. His "Savage Strength" brand was buried under an avalanche of hate. Sponsors immediately dropped him, issuing public statements condemning his actions. His attempt at damage control was a disaster. A statement released by a hastily hired lawyer was full of hollow legalese. "Mr. Weston deeply regrets the incident, which was an unfortunate, ill-conceived performance that was not intended to cause physical harm or disrespect." The public saw through it instantly. Not intended to cause harm. "He body-slammed a soldier onto stone," a viral tweet retorted. "He's not sorry he did it. He's sorry he got caught." The story transcended national borders. International news outlets portrayed it as a shocking example of fame-obsessed, ugly American entitlement. Jagger Weston hadn't just assaulted a soldier, he had desecrated a symbol, insulted every person who had ever worn a uniform, and united a global audience in absolute condemnation. His digital trial was over. The verdict was unanimous: guilty. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with anticipation. Jagger Weston stood before the judge, a shrunken figure in an ill-fitting suit. The bravado was gone, replaced by a pallid, sweaty fear. His swagger had vanished, leaving behind a man utterly broken by the consequences of his own arrogance. At the front of the gallery sat Sergeant Caleb Reed. His uniform was, once again, immaculate. His left arm was cradled in a black sling, a stark reminder of the violence that had brought them all here. He showed no emotion, his posture as disciplined in a suit as it was in uniform. The judge, a formidable woman with graying hair and the piercing eyes of someone who had seen true justice and injustice, was a retired Army JAG Corps colonel. She looked down at Jagger not just as a judge, but as a veteran. Her desk was piled with files, medical reports, witness statements, and a flash drive containing the viral videos. "Mr. Weston," she began, her voice calm but resonating with absolute authority. "You have described your actions as a prank. A joke. Let me be clear about what you did." She paused, letting her words hang in the silent room. "You went to a place made sacred by the blood and sacrifice of generations. You stood before a tomb that holds the very soul of our nation's promise, that no one is forgotten. And in that sacred place, you chose to commit an act of brutish violence for the sake of internet notoriety." Jagger flinched, staring at the floor. "Your joke," the judge continued, her voice rising with controlled fire, "resulted in a broken collarbone for a soldier on active duty. But the injury goes far deeper. You assaulted the uniform. You assaulted the flag he protects. You assaulted the memory of every soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine who gave their last full measure of devotion. You sought to make a mockery of honor itself." She looked from Jagger to Caleb, her expression softening for a fraction of a second before hardening again as she faced the defendant. "Therefore, this court sentences you to 10 months in federal prison. Furthermore, you will be required to complete 500 hours of community service at a VA hospital, and you will issue a formal, public apology to be distributed to all major veterans organizations. Perhaps there, you will learn the meaning of the words you so carelessly trampled upon: honor, respect, and sacrifice." A wave of applause swept through the gallery. Jagger's shoulders slumped in defeat. Justice, swift and unequivocal, had been served. Weeks later, after surgery and physical therapy, Caleb Reed stood on a parade ground, his sling finally gone. A 4-star general stood before him, pinning the Army Commendation Medal to his chest for his extraordinary discipline and devotion to duty in the face of a malicious assault. Cameras flashed, but Caleb's expression remained humble. When a reporter later asked him how he felt, he responded simply, "I did what any sentinel would do," he said. "We don't guard a tomb, we guard a sacred promise." The story of Jagger and Caleb became a modern parable. It sparked a national conversation about the line between fame and infamy, between humor and desecration in the digital age. Caleb Reed's quiet strength reminded millions that true power isn't in loud boasts, but in silent, unwavering commitment. Caleb's story shows us that real strength lies in what you stand for. What do you think is the right way to draw the line in our culture? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please, comment with respect. If you were moved by Sergeant Reed's incredible dedication, give this video a like, subscribe for more stories of unsung heroes, and share this to honor all those who quietly stand guard for us.